Good afternoon. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It is Friday, February 13th, 2026. It's 1 o'clock. And we have with us the third of the ANR budgets to talk about, Department of Forest, Parks and Recreation. So welcome. If you would like to introduce yourselves and take it away for us, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. For the record, I'm Danielle Fitzko. I'm the Commissioner of Forest, Parks and Recreation.
I'm Steve Gomez, Chief Financial Officer for the Agency of Natural Resources.
Great.
Okay, we will get into our presentation. Similar to the other departments in the Secretary's office, we have a lot more slides than we'll present, but you have the full slide deck. So I know we may pause at some places, so happy to answer any questions along the way. Just a quick overview of FPR. When I think of FPR, I think about Vermont's identity, and I think we are steward of a lot of what Vermont's known for. We are forests, so we work on keeping our forests healthy, intact, and sustainably managed, thinking about biodiversity, climate resilience, and the forest economy, which contributes 14,000 jobs a year and $2.1 billion to our economy. We are state parks with 55 state parks across the state. We like to say we're every Vermonter is 20 minutes away from a state park, usually about 1 million visitors a year, really making memories, affordable memories for Vermonters and visitors. And we are outdoor recreation, so advancing the outdoor recreation sector, which is about 4.6% of Vermont's GDP. So think about almost 5 cents of every dollar can be attributed to outdoor recreation. So beyond the economic impact, it's about our health and well-being and supporting communities and our connection to nature. When I think about FPR's work, we support the rural economy, both in forest and recreation sector, public health and well-being, workforce development, conservation, biodiversity, and climate resilience. Really, again, thinking about like the Vermont identity, what our service is about. This is my people slide to give you an idea of how we're organized. I'm the commissioner, but right next to me is Kate Everly. She's our principal assistant. She's not here today, but you will see her in the building. She's our legislative affairs liaison and our communications lead. You may have gotten our summer newsletter that she helps lead. And then we have 4 divisions. We have our forestry division, which is our largest, about 64 full-time staff with 8 programmatic areas, everything from forest health, wildland fire, state lands, private lands, downtowns, urban and community forests, watershed forestry, forest economy, climate. They do a lot of great work. State parks, we have about 50 full-time employees. And then you can imagine what it's like in the summertime. We're operating state parks. We blow up to bring on about 450 seasonal. Right now it's hiring. So if you know anybody, we'd love to have you at state parks. We always say, come try Vermont and like work at our state parks. Really fortunate this year, but over 50% are coming back. So they return, which is fantastic. We have lands administration and recreation. This really has 3 buckets. They lead outdoor recreation for us. They also are a conservation arm. So anytime we're conserving land, whether it's going to be part of our portfolio at FPR or conservation easements. And they also provide an agency function for lands administration for our state lands. So they manage sort of like the deeds of state lands, but also what is the policies and procedures for our planning and caring for the lands. And then the administrative arm, they're not the ones you see, but they are the ones keeping us the programmatic areas moving forward. They do everything from our budgeting, grants, contracts, HR, compliance. Total, we have about 144 year-round. Then again, the summertime, we employ support a lot of workforce in Vermont.
How long has your administrative leader been missing?
Since October, we're in the 2nd round of active recruitment right now, and we're very close. So if I come back in 2 weeks, I would hopefully be saying we are filled.
Okay.
I know Steve would really be happy. He's been playing double duty.
I'm sure.
But he is fantastic. So I thank you, Steve. Wanted to give you an update on some of last year's investments. We did have a one-time appropriation for the workforce development program, Serve, Learn, Earn. I'm sure you're familiar with this program. It's a fantastic program. Just from July of 2025 to the end of the calendar year, I had actually wrote down, 280 participants went through the program with 160 projects in 50 communities. In addition to the $250,000 we got in one-time funds, you also provided, thank you, $500,000 in base funds last year that are maintained this year going forward.
Great, okay. Yeah, it'd be nice to, see you put a lot out about the fire engine, but a little less about the serve, learn, and earn. And it would be nice to hear a little bit more,
Yes.
more writing on that.
I'm happy to provide that. They just provide us the annual report. The reason we added the fire engine, because the last time we presented in the policy committee, they asked so much about the fire engine. They wanted to see a picture. They were so curious about it.
People and their trucks.
Yeah. So we did get $275,000 for a wildlife fire truck. That is for the state to be able to support local fire departments and responding to wildland fires. I'm sure you know the risk has increased. This past summer we were on high alert all summer long. This is not like we're going down to the local fire engine dealer and buying an engine. The RFP we've been working on with BGS since July 1. It's to drop any day now. And then once we get under contract, it probably will take about a year to get the engine in.
Really?
Yeah, they build it. But we're really excited to have it. I think we're probably the last state to have one of these. And when it's not in use and we have a low fire season here, we can actually send it to other states to use and they will give us money back. So we feel like it will eventually bring more money into support wildland fire.
And right now, since you don't have one, if you have a wildland fire, can you borrow from other states?
Oh yeah, we have agreements within the region with the Forest Service. So like this past summer,
Yeah.
we had states ready to come in. You probably heard about the helicopter that came in and dropped
Yes.
water in Williston. That was the Forest Service helping us out.
Yeah.
So there's definitely an increase in activity for us. We supported 12 fire events this past year. And you saw the BAA request. It would cost us about $100,000 this year in overtime, the helicopter, and also Forest Service provides us 24 hours of free sort of response. And after that, we have to pay them. So one event, they were over 24 hours.
Well, it seems to me that helicopter ride was around $18,000.
It was.
Very expensive. Yeah. I remember numbers.
We dropped 11,000 gallons in about 30 minutes. And normally, that was the first time we've done anything like this, but it was in Williston and we had infrastructure around. So it's like if the cost, if we didn't do, we felt would be greater. So we did deploy it. Yeah. It's hard making those choices that, on the
Yeah. Yeah.
But we have a great team that's monitoring and we are looking at hopefully having a task force to even think about what our needs in the future. We don't want to do it after an event. We want to be thinking progressively forward.
Great.
There is in the governor's recommended budget funding for VORAC, which is Vermont Outdoor Recreation Economic Collaborative. This is, I'm sure you've heard of VORAC grants. These are recreation grants. There's $500,000 currently in the recommend. These are really, when I think about VORAC grants, these are really revenue generating grants because they're, when we invest in outdoor economy, it does pay us back. These are locally led projects that really look at how we steward our outdoor recreation, but also linking to outdoor businesses. And it's also really direct connection in many cases to downtowns, trying to increase visitation downtown. The last time we offered a grant round was in 2025, and we actually had $11 million because we combined 2 years. In that grant round, we still left $13 million and 70 projects unfunded. So that just tells me there's still so much opportunity out there that communities are ready. We have completed we have grants with 85 different groups. 29 are still open and you can see the map shows you where they've been all across the state. You can see many rural parts of our state.
I guess that's what I'm asking. So examples of some projects?
Oh, sure. Well, guess what I have next?
Oh, really? Thank you.
These are just two of the 85. And the first one is in Waitsfield. I realized with $500,000, we could not have the scale of grants going out. But in Waitsfield, what they did was they had a plan in place and looked at the community of what it would look like to improve safe access to businesses and crossings. So they improved access where there's the roads and trails. They built this bridge here, which connects to 60 miles of network And the result is really this recreation system that connects right to the downtown. And I was actually,
I've seen it. It's pretty amazing.
yeah, it's fantastic. It's totally community led and they have plans in place and everyone's really on board. And it's about the stewardship and then also the community sort of investment and vitalization. In Danville, for just under $100,000, they took their train station and created it into a recreation hub that connects to the Lemoyle Valley Rail Trail. You familiar with it?
It's there, yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And what we're hearing from local businesses is that people are coming in more now, and it's such a fantastic resource. And so the train station still is now a recreation hub. They've even had some branding to promote the area, and then they've made an ADA accessible facilities within the train station. So really good investments with proven results on the ground.
So you're asking for 500,000 this year,
Yes.
and you have a backlog. When you have projects
We had
ready to go.
We had 13 million unfunded projects last grant round when we had 11 to give out.
Yeah.
So there's definitely demand.
Great.
And this next one is a modernization of what we call the Lands and Facilities Trust Fund. The fund revenue comes from uses of state land. So think about like telecommunication towers on state lands, or timber sale revenues, leases and permits. Sometimes when we have conservation projects, we get stewardship funds. That all goes into the Lands and Facilities Trust Fund, which is in a high interest earning account that the Treasurer's Office oversees. What we're looking to do is three things. One is basically a technical correction. Where the language sits is actually under the Agency of Natural Resources, but the language refers to FPR, so we want to just change that to A&R to align the statute. Another piece in the language is we'd like to expand the use of the funds, and I should clarify this for you as well. We use 5% of the 12-month rolling average to put back on the ground for state land. So it's stewardship dollars on the ground. We'd like to expand it as opposed to just being money on the ground. Most of the money gets put out in contracts. So we'd like to expand it to be able to use for the administrative purposes of it. Because what's happening is we're writing a lot of contracts. We want to be able to sort of fund our ability to actually manage those contracts going out. And the last piece, because of the health of the account, which is currently at $6.2 million, we'd like to increase it from 5% to 8% of the funds that were available to use on the ground. And if
So this is a special fund.
yeah,
Yes.
you call it.
Yes,
What is it? And that's what it's called. So we can find it in our special funds report.
yes.
And when you talk about administrative costs, is there a percentage of anything that you put out, or how are you putting guidelines and guardrails around how much to spend for administrative costs?
We don't want to spend a lot of money on administrative costs, but we want the money on the ground. I think we were looking at less than 10%, honestly.
Is the language in the governor's recommend?
Yes.
My point is to this section, because this doesn't. We can find it, but
We can follow up.
About how much is administrative costs? You've seen that already?
I looked at it, I didn't see that.
There's no mention of like an administrative cost cap, no.
There isn't. Okay.
No.
All right. Well, we'll take a look at the language and see if we need to maybe tighten it up a little bit.
Yeah, our goal is to put the money on the ground, but just thinking about.
We understand that, and sometimes we like to just have that built-in oversight, so we don't ask you all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just for clarification, in the FY27 budget, we did include some dollars for administrative costs, and it's like 9.5% is what I think it is, approximately. It's under 10%. So that is built into the FY27 budget.
It is.
Yes.
Okay.
The administrative piece, yes.
So that's assuming the language passes.
That's assuming the language passes correct.
Steve did all the analysis here, and if using 8% in 2034, we anticipate the fund would grow to $7 million. So even going from 5 to 8%, the fund would continue to grow based on very conservative estimates that Steve ran. But he could tell you more because he's the brains behind the dollars.
So, yeah, so what we did with the assessment of the fund is there's three main categories on the revenue side. So there's the earned revenue, which includes timber sales and special use permits. There's the interest revenue generated, and then there's a very small amount of donations. So what we did is we took a 10-year sample size and basically looked at those and took snapshots of 3, 5, and 10-year averages for each of those revenue sources. Whichever amount was the lowest, we used that as basically the base for the fund going forward. So when we did that calculation, just as an example, it comes up with $570,000 of new revenue in FY27. And looking back, 4 out of the last 6 years, it's been over $750,000. So we feel, taking this approach, it allows us to increase the amount of money that'll be on the ground for project work, but also the fund will continue to grow. Our estimate's at 1%. I'm guessing it'll be more than that based on, the reality we've seen in the fund for the last 6 years. The other piece that the department did was starting in FY25, they built a management plan for this fund. So now we are trying to keep at least 90% invested in the trust investment account, which is the higher yield. We have two options, right? You have like your daily savings, which doesn't really generate interest, and you have a trust investment account. So we're trying to keep at least 90% invested. So that's about 10% more than it historically has been. So just from that factor alone, we should see additional revenue being generated on the investment side. So we did some pre-work up to the
spreadsheet that shows. We like spreadsheets.
Yeah, you want a spreadsheet?
Yeah, that would be great.
That's not a problem.
He likes spreadsheets too.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Marty.
Is this the same fund from which you pay the pilot payments? Or does that come out of another?
No, the pilot payment is paid out of the B701 appropriation, which is in the secretary's office. It's primarily funded with general fund dollars. And then the Department of Fish and Wildlife, they fund about $421,000. And it's about $2.3 million in general fund.
My next slide shows you where how we use the funds to steward state lands. I've kind of broken it out into 3 categories. There's really the on-the-ground projects. Think of trails and trailheads. This coming year, we anticipate doing work at Still Pinnacle, doing an adaptive mountain biking trail at Little River State Park, Shrewsbury Peak, several others. Visitor infrastructure, we've been really putting effort into revitalizing the 8 fire towers that are on state land. They've become recreational destinations, but they're not in the best of shape right now. So we have plans to do work there. Dam and water infrastructure, we're going to be doing a design to remove a dam in Underhill State Park. We also use these funds for just core land stewardship, thinking about hazard tree removals, protecting public safety. I'm sure you've heard of emerald ash borer and introduced invasive insect that is killing ash trees. And we need to be aggressive in removing ash trees in high use areas, particularly state parks and trailheads. And any vegetation management, just thinking about mowing and introduce invasive species control. Also does help support some workforce and capacity. We bring on seasonals like state trail crew that helps us with roving and clearing up and maintaining trails. And then also areas where we do not bring in revenue, but we have high use. Think of like Willoughby, south end of Willoughby. Sure, most of you have been there. It's fantastic. People love it. And we've had to put a lot of infrastructure there to manage sort of the people so we can protect the resource. But with so many people visiting, we actually had to have staff there to manage, keep parking and keep everybody well behaved.
Getting back to your vegetation management, does that include controlled burns or you don't do those?
We do prescribed burns. Doesn't really cost us anything because our staff are trained in how to do that. We work. It's got to be in a long range management plan for us to do that. And it's mostly done on fish and wildlife land where we're looking at habitat management.
Must be the U.S. Forest Service that's trying to do some controlled burns in my neck of the woods around Lake Dunmore and Silver Lake, and that's U.S., right?
That is the U.S. Forest Service, yes, that's doing that. That's in the headlines right now.
They're in the middle of a comment.
Right.
Okay.
It is an effective management tool that we use it sparingly, but you can, and depends on when you can actually do it because you got to be safe when you can actually go. And so our wildland fire team manages all that. We do maybe one every other year.
Okay. Yeah, it's not something I've heard a lot about from you guys, so or in the paper. So it must be not out of control. And
Well, nothing we're doing is out of control, but everything goes through. I think it's because they're going through the planning process. We go through a long range management planning process before we implement anything on the ground.
Okay.
So that is LFTF. I realize that's a lot. So any questions on that? Okay.
No, John?
I live not too far from Lake Willoughby, so.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, how crowded it can be like
Yeah.
in summertime, especially,
And we-
well, on both ends of the lake here, really.
And we've done a lot of investments there recently that have been hopefully well received.
Has that been helpful? Because like parking.
The parking has been tremendous. We added over 100 extra parking. Still gets, it's
Still
still,
fills, right?
yep. And we do have some more plans. We're doing ADA accessible kayak launch this year. Eventually, we hope to actually have more permanent bathroom facilities there. Just, it's such a high use area.
Do you think you'd have to add even more parking at that? I mean, there wasn't as much there to begin with here. People were parking on the road. You built a nice tier lot there, and that's been super helpful, but it still fills.
It still fills. We don't have funding for that right now, but, you know, we were really fortunate on that when we did get Northern Borders Regional Commission funding to put those on the ground. So we're always looking at what's next. And it tends to be, a lot of times we have these high use water areas that we have to begin investing in, and we really don't bring any revenue in for, like a state park where we do actually have price fee admission.
So you have a couple of staff there now, so.
We have a roving, we call it a roving ranger, yes.
Helping to like get people parked, or you have to turn people away, just because of.
I don't think we try not to turn people away, but we do make sure like the gates are closed at night. We have a partnership with the campground across the street. I think it's been better managed. And we have a great relationship with the game wardens to help us if needed.
Plenty of parking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, what do I have next? I understand you want some ARPA updates. FPR did receive 3.3
Before
million.
that, you had federal funds update.
Now we can go,
Anything that's been cut or pulled back?
we have not had, we were all nervous clearly for a year, but we have not had any cuts. All the competitive grants have come through. FY26 federal budget is on par and in some cases a little higher than it was the previous year. So nothing that's alarming for us at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Our
So we did get $3.3 million in ARPA in 3 targeted areas. State parks have to meet the 3-acre stormwater rule. We have 19 state parks that have over 3 acres from pervious areas. And these funds, 2 million actually supported meeting that 3-acre rule in 4 parks and partially in 2 other parks. We had an urban tree planting block grant and community canopy grant. That was really looking at targeting tree planting in areas where we can improve stormwater. And then parks, major maintenance, we had $300,000 to support a wastewater system in, I think, Underhill State Park. Right now, we have just under $90,000 that remains unspent, but it's going to be out the door very soon. We're absolutely on track to have the funds spent by the end of the calendar year.
Is that 89,000 for one project or just across a bunch of things?
It's in the 3-acre stormwater.
3 acre, okay.
Yeah. And if you're interested, that picture there, because you know, I'm an urban forester, that is silver cells where think about scaffolding under sidewalks that allows continuous soil underneath it so you can grow really big trees with
Trees there?
great canopy. Yeah,
So you always wonder what's going on underneath the sidewalk and how did that big tree get there?
right?
yeah, that's because of the really innovation in how we can now grow trees with silver cells. So that's in Burlington with ARPA funding.
Great.
This is a general overview of our budget. Yeah,
Yeah, so wanted to just provide the opportunity since FPR's budget is split into 5 different appropriations to kind of provide the big picture of the department as a whole. And the one thing I'll flag here in particular, and we'll cover most of this in an additional slide, but there's, you see there's a large decrease in the FY26 to FY27 budget, almost $1.2 million. What's really driving that there is land acquisition costs. So in the FY26 budget, there's about $8 million for land acquisition. In FY27, there's only about $4 million. So if you remove just that one accounting line, you end up with a $3 million increase, which is about a 6% year-over-year increase. So just wanted to flag that because it does look odd and wanted to point that out for.
Would that be a decrease?
Sorry, what was
That would
that?
be a decrease.
It shows right now as a decrease because of the land acquisition.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, that-
correct. Yeah, so it's, yeah, a little confusing. Not something you'd expect to see probably in a budget. So just wanted to point that out, that once you remove that one accounting line, then there's the $3 million increase at 6%.
Do you have plans for the 4 million? Or you just, I imagine you budget some every year, but do you have actual projects in mind with the 4 million?
So those are federal dollars that come in pretty much through the Forest Legacy Program. We have a lot of Forest Legacy funds for projects that we've been awarded from the Forest Service. We try to guess when we're going to close on them and put them in that fiscal year budget. We have some big ones coming up, but we don't anticipate them to the following fiscal year. And we get those funds on a competitive basis. We have to apply for them. So it's just, when do we think they're going to close? So it fluctuates every year.
Sure. No, I totally understand that. And does some of this money, can it be used to pay into the pilot?
No.
So that's general fund.
Yeah. These are all the due diligence that goes up to it. We're actually allowed to do staff time because there's a lot of surveying work and our conservation team, and then the actual acquisition.
Yeah, okay.
Which also is a match program.
Okay, thank you.
This is just an overview of our 5 funds that we have in FPR and the sort of the size of them. State Parks is our largest at 37% of our budget. Most of that is Park Special Fund, so it's, I mean, I actually wrote about how much is general fund for parks, it's not very much. 8% Parks General Fund, it's mostly Park Special Fund. Lands Administration and Recreation, very heavy on federal dollars because of land conservation and a lot of money coming in for recreation grants. Forestry has a larger portion of general funds, but about 30% federal funds. Administration is our business office and the commissioner's office, and that little sliver down there that has nothing on it, that is state parks and forest roads. It's about $230,000 that's dedicated to the management of state roads in state parks and state forests. We have about 600 miles of roads. So you can imagine it's a little bit to help us manage those roads. Steve's going to go over this one. This is some key budget changes that may pop out at you when you look at our budget in more detail.
Further back, what page is that one?
Slide 19. So with key budget changes, looking at the internal service fund as you're all familiar with, so we have a $131,000 increase there. Wanted to flag that FPR's general fund increase year over year is just under 2%, which compared to other departments probably seems low. The main driver for that is property and commercial insurance decreased. And along with that decrease, basically all of that was general fund. So we saw a $541,000 decrease and then a corresponding $539,000 general fund decrease as a result of that.
Did I tell you why it went down so much?
Yeah, the property and commercial insurance, it's been on this kind of roller coaster because of the floods that have happened.
Okay.
So, right, we get a flood and then it jumps up and then no flood or less flooding and then we see it down because there was a couple of state parks that are hit particularly hard in 23, right?
Plymouth,
Yeah.
Jamaica.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's what we're seeing there, yep. And then as with the other departments at A&R, a $424,000 net increase in ADS billable services. This is core enterprise services increasing, and then a decrease in the service level agreement. So that nets out to just over $400,000. And then on the federal and program side, a new grant for the department was awarded. It's a $5 million grant in total. We have $1.1 million budgeted in FY 27. So that's new for the upcoming fiscal year. And then there's a $160,000 increase budgeted for tree removal, high hazard trees and areas to as part of a safety concern. And then as part of the clean water budget recommendation, there was an additional $300,000 increase for FPR for road and water quality funding.
What does this IRA stand for?
Inflation Reduction Act.
Okay, yeah. Too many IRAs.
Especially when you talk about money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I should know better than to not spell it out.
It's not your retirement account.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then the last set of bullet points there, there was $1 million decrease for Economic Development Authority funding. That flowed through ACCD to FPR. So you'll notice there's a large decrease in the interdepartmental fund for FPR. That's just projects being completed, one-time funding coming off the books. And then, as I mentioned previously, land acquisitions down by just over $4 million year to year. The vast majority of that, 3.8 million, is forest legacy dollars. Those are federal funds. There's also a small amount, $300,000, that is tied to the land acquisition special fund at FPR. Complete that $4.1 million decrease you see. And then the last one is a very interesting one. So the Land and Water Conservation Fund, that is federal funding that flows to the department. So the department's on a cycle where each year there's a different award type. So what we saw in FY26 is a large amount budgeted in grants. Those went out to communities, and a smaller amount budgeted in contracts, which that stays in-house for state lands work. And what you'll see in 27 is an increase in contract work for state lands work, and then the decrease in the community grant round. So we're on this every other year cycle where one year, correct me, even years it goes out to
Even year grants.
even year it goes out to communities, odd years it stays in-house. And so going forward, you'll see this every year where it kind of shifts between these major object lines. But overall, the funding is for the federal fiscal year 26 budget is expected to increase by 5% as passed. So.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just wondering, what's the rationale for that cycle?
Yeah, it's a heavy lift to move $3 million out to communities. So we do that every other year. So it allows us to do the upstream work of working with communities to get them ready to apply. Then we go to the awards, and then that could take us a year. Then we give it a pause, and then we go out every other year with the grants. We get about $3.3 million every year. And the way the funding comes, 50% is meant for state projects and 50% is meant for community projects. So we just flip-flop it every year. It seems to work well for communities who can plan. They know when it's coming every other year. And then it allows for administratively to sort of move the grants through the system. I think that there's certainly a lot more slides there. This is our last slide that really just links you to a whole bunch of documents. But if you want to peek through anything and if any follow-up questions, we're happy to.
I'm just sort of scrolling through here, and I just came upon the Division of Forests, and you have 154,000 proposed vacancy target.
Yep.
So are those positions that are empty right now?
No, it's the projected. So I believe that if you look at the 3-year average for that division in particular, the vacancy rate's been about 7%. The $154,000 budgeted represents, I think, a 3.2% vacancy rate. So this is just part of the normal churn that less than the normal churn that we've been seeing with, people either retiring or leaving state employment or leaving department employment. So that's what that number reflects there. So
Nobody's losing their job over vacancy sake.
No.
We try not, we like to fill right away.
Yeah, there are no proposed rifts in the budget, and yeah.
I will say though, this is the first year for administration, DLAR, and state parks. So we added vacancy savings in our budgets.
Yeah, well, I was looking ahead at section B 706, Division of Land Administration and Recreation on slide 30. And there's 122% increase in personnel line, but a 47% decrease in operating and a 59% decrease in grants. So can you just explain?
Yep, that'll go back to the slide that had the key budget changes. So the 122% increase in personal services, that includes contracts. So that includes the increase for the Land and Water Conservation Fund contracting piece. So we had, I think it was $4.1 or $2 million identified on that bullet point for Land and Water Conservation Fund. So that's what's represented there. The 47% decrease in operating, that's where the land acquisition line lives. So what you're seeing there is the $8 million to essentially $4 million budgeted from, for land acquisitions. And then the grants decrease, again, that's connected to the Land and Water Conservation Fund, going from community grant round to state lands work. So this division houses those biggest swings you saw in the previous budget slide.
So every other year, those are gonna flip flop,
Yeah.
basically, is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this, so contracted services don't go into grants, they go into personal services, so that's
Yeah,
our.
okay.
He has to
You have
explain to
remember
me too.
that, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, the personal services line, yes, it includes the staffing costs, but it also includes contracts, workers' comp, unemployment insurance, Catamount Health. So it's there's a lot of things rolled up into that single major object.
And the reason that federal funds there are down 2.5 million?
That's land conservation.
Land acquisition,
That's the land
legacy,
acquisition.
yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that can also go up and down, and you're not worried about that being pulled or stopped at this point?
No, actually, through the American Great Outdoors Act, which passed Congress maybe 3 or 4 years ago, there's $900 million in that, and there's about $100 million each year that goes to forest legacy. So that's pretty stable. And Vermont has been very successful. It's had Senator Leahy's the one who championed that
Yeah.
first project in the nation.
Oh, cool. Nice. All right, any other areas that you have reports here? Anything else we should know?
Might just speak to the special fund slide
Yes.
39, because that looks very interesting based on the current status, but wanted to just fill in the gap there. So, FDR has 2 special funds that have over $500,000 in expenditures. One of those is the State Forest Parks Fund, which is the State Park Special Fund. When we ran this report a couple of weeks ago, there was a $2.5 million deficit in that fund. And that's just because we're waiting on the ski lease payments to come in for that fund. So we think that we're projecting there's $5.2 million of ski lease payments that we're going to be depositing here in the next 2 months, definitely. And our projection for that fund is by the end of the year, we'll probably have about $1 million fund balance. So it's in the red right now. We'll deposit those ski lease payments and we'll end up probably around $1 million in special fund balance.
You should go skiing.
So it's like once a year they pay?
The payments all roll in, usually between January and April for the seven series. Seven ski resorts. Yeah.
And so then we had this conversation in here. Who was telling me this? Why aren't you guys over here? We own the tramway at Killington or something? Who's telling me that?
We don't, I don't.
We inspect them.
We inspect.
Department of Labor.
Oh, that was it. Right.
I was like, oh, I can't answer this one.
It seemed a little odd. That was it. It was just they were expecting it.
They,
I thought we
for
had-
whatever reason that they do it, it's not probably unlike same category as the Department of Agriculture, weights and measures, the
Right,
gasoline.
at gas stations.
It's just, there's something quirky about it from years ago that
Okay.
they, Department of Labor oversees the
All
safety
right.
of
So you don't know
traffic.
anything about that. I thought there was something that we owned, like a lift somewhere, but I guess we don't own. We don't own any lifts, right? We just
No.
own the land that they
The
lease.
land, and there's some buildings, but
Yeah, okay. And do you renegotiate leases every 3 years, 5 years?
they're like 40 to 50-year leases. The first one
Is there an
that's,
inflation index built into that?
no, the first one that's up for renewal is Bromley in 2032. So we're starting to think about that. I will share with you that we are under contract now with a financial firm that is helping us look at our ski leases and to better understand sort of the payments.
Yeah.
Now that tickets have changed from just a single day use or Caesar's Pass to like multi-resort passes.
Yes.
So we're just trying to get a better handle on that and having some more consistency in the reporting that comes back to us. That just kicked off a couple of weeks ago. So by next year, I'll be able to report back on sort of what that consultant has advised us on how to move forward managing our ski leases. When we have an opportunity, we do modernize the leases to include like uphill ski policies and me thinking about sort of how use has changed, but we really can't change sort of the money pieces of it.
And is that common for states to have 40 or 50-year leases? Yeah.
I mean, you're managing a really big resort, and
Yeah.
long-term investment, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of want to know that if you're going to put all that money in, it's going to be around, you should be able to lease it for a while.
And every time we do any sort of update of a lease like that, we come to the legislature for approval.
That's why I seem to remember that you did that sometime in the last 10 years with some ski area. I feel like I've talked about this.
Well,
But they-
maybe Smugs, we sometimes do it just when it's sale.
Yeah, so
Right,
Smugglers is going to
yeah.
be bought by people who
And
own,
then partners.
right? So that would be a time that you might have a conversation.
I think there were some minor adjustments.
Yeah.
When, Jay and Burke were both sold by Heroes. I think, right, that's sold a couple times.
We do it, like with the upcoming sale, we work with Department of Finance and regulations to be thinking about, are they good fiscally? Do they have the resource to actually manage it for the long term? So they do an analysis for us on that.
The things we do in state government it's just always so interesting. There's things, fish hatcheries and ski areas. Anything else you would like to let us know about at this point? Okay.
Appreciate your time.
Not seeing any questions in the committee. You know Trevor is your liaison. He's been doing this for a while. We'll ask more questions. It's been kind of fun hearing more about what all of you are doing. So I appreciated that today. Thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Yes, thank you. And happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
So committee, I have advanced access to next week's agenda. Hi, Dave. We're going to start at 9:30. Autumn will post this before she leaves today, maybe when you get home today, but you will see it. So, but we're starting at 9:30 on Tuesday. We have Monday off because it's a holiday. Another 3-day weekend. Might be the last one for a while, so enjoy it. But we will have town meeting break in between, so it isn't like we're okay. So we have labor relations in 911. Logan from Joint Fiscal is going to come in later in the morning to talk about an overview of the purchase and use tax, so that we understand that, because that's one of the things the governor's proposing, and I know Ways and Means is working on it, but we ought to know all about that too. I don't know if that's also been involved in any more transportation information. I'll check and see if we maybe get Chris Rubel here at the same time. Lots of various things. We're going to have Ledge Council and the Deputy Treasurer come in on Wednesday morning to talk about the Higher Ed Trust Endowment Trust Fund. The governor's proposing changing the uses of that fund and has proposed that $15 million. So we're going to understand how that money is being used now and what those changes are being proposed. So it was one of those sleepy funds that we've never, you never pay any attention to it, because people who have, somebody died last year who chose to do in their estate planning that they would pay taxes to the state of Vermont. It wasn't a mistake. It was somebody who felt that they should, at least one of them is what I've been told. Anyway, so various things going on. And we're also, just so you know, the budget adjustment has passed second reading on the floor of the Senate this morning on a voice vote. I was told Chris Rupert had been up there and he didn't hear any nays, so it sounded unanimous. So it'll be final reading on Tuesday. The plan is to forthwith it, expeditiously back over to us, suspend rules. So we will get it. Because of the timing, I guess we may not get it till Wednesday, and then Wednesday after. So we'll take a look at it really quickly. We'll have Ledge Council, we'll have Emily and whoever talk about what the changes are, and then recommend a committee of conference, which I will do it on the floor on Wednesday. And then we're hoping that maybe we can do the whole thing Thursday and Friday. There aren't that many changes, but we want to just do it with a committee of conference. So that's kind of the plan. That all makes sense?
Could I suggest we need to have ADS in one more time?
Yes.
Because
I
when they
know
came
that.
the first time, they didn't show us any
Right.
numbers.
So we
And
want to see their actual budget. And we also may want to talk about whether they should be in two parts. And one part is understanding this whole new billing thing, and maybe Adam's here with them. So
I think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Because they have been in energy and digital infrastructure 2 or 3 times, well, 2 times
Yeah.
anyway. They've had their full budget talked about with that committee, and then Adam's been in, and James was in yesterday to energy
Right.
and whatever. So I think they understand now what it is, but we haven't had that
Right.
full overview. And so I think it would be helpful.
Yeah, yes, so
This
we'll
committee to
work
have
with
that.
Autumn and figure out a time next week for them to come in. And we're getting close to the end of everybody that we need to hear from. Committee letters are due next Friday. We won't get 100% next Friday, but we'll get a bunch. What do you-
After, VHCB comes in on Wednesday, we'll have heard from,
We'll have what?
heard from everyone.
Oh, we will, all right. Go team. So again, now we're on to some round two. So we, we're pulling people back in because we want to know more about certain things. And if there are other things that you think of, just let me know and, we can put them back in. We will, once the committee letter's in, we'll have Teresa in, for example. We'll probably have Alyssa in from healthcare. I don't know whether we'll have others. It sort of depends on what they've got, but those are always the two biggest ones. So probably the following week at some point, we'll have them in as well. And then we're going to start getting a few more bills. We have 2 bills that we're just sort of sitting on for the moment. But I'm understanding that there are going to be a few more bills coming. I don't think it's going to be 39 bills in a week this year. So Mike and then Lynn.
So in the past, after we went through this group, we
Yeah.
heard other stakeholders, and also I think we set a day for a certain amount of time for legislators to come in.
Yes, thank you.
Gonna do that.
Yes, thank you for the reminder. Why don't we do that the week before town meeting? Because we'll have another public hearing next week on Thursday from 5 to 6:30. So people don't forget that. That's completely filled up. So the following week, let's have legislators come in. And I think we set aside an hour to do that. So we'll pick a time. Lynn?
Yeah, and is it possible to have Jill Olson come in and explain the kinds of details that
Oh, yeah.
are in that rural
Yeah.
transformation thing that I
Yes.
can't really change? I mean, I
Yes.
have an idea of what we can do, or what we're expected to do, or
Yeah.
not do.
Yeah, I think that would be good. And maybe we have Nolan. Nolan was going to do some sort of a crosswalk maybe between, there are things that are being left out. We may want to have some people from AHS come in again too, because I think there's things that are not being picked up by the rural health transformation and that are just going away. And we didn't get as good a handle on that as I,
Yeah, and there's a couple, I don't know if it's bills, of course, all the time, but there's a healthcare bill in
Yeah.
health
right.
that is changing some of the things that we've done in the past few years, 20 years or so, that apparently are supposed to be having an impact on the cost of healthcare. It might be nice to see.
Well, if and when that bill gets out of committee, we'll take it up.
Yeah.
I think there's some good ideas and there's some half-baked ideas and some not under,
Yeah.
so for example, the community rating is one of the things that they talked about, just getting rid of it instead of all people pay the same. But the actual numbers, when people went and did the work on it, they're only talking of the request was for a 5% difference. And the savings is negligible to take away the community rating. In terms of what the younger people would save, and the costs on the other end would be a lot higher. So it sounds like, in theory, it may be a good idea, but in practice, it doesn't sound like it's actually going to work. But that's the sort of stuff they're looking at. And so we'll see what kind of bill comes out of there. And then, obviously that'll come to our committee. So, Dave?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. I'm not sure if the juice is worth the squeeze, and I don't want to make JFO do something that we can't do anything about, but I've been thinking more and more about the vacancy savings, and it seems like it's the go-to tool to balance the books in state government. And I'm curious what the overall impact is. And in A&R, it seemed very significant. They had 600 positions, I believe, and 8% of them they won't be able to fill. And some of the smaller units, if you've got 25 employees and you got to have 2 empty positions, it can really be wasteful and crippling. I mean, you can have high level paid people doing administrative work just because you don't have a program clerk. I mean, it doesn't. Maybe I'm the only one that has a concern, and I certainly appreciate that.
I was gonna ask a similar thing.
Yeah.
But what is the what is the process of taking a look at an annual budget and saying, we demand that you have this much vacancy savings, which means you are purposefully not
Right,
hiring people that we may have already budgeted for, or whatever it
right,
is.
right.
Like, I heard of this use for years past, but it seems now that I'm sitting here, my question aligns with David's, which is just like,
Yeah.
like, this is purposely keeping people under capacity to reach a budget number
Mhm.
as opposed to a service number. I mean, this isn't even like, this is worse to me than austerity budgeting.
It's how you balance the budget, yeah.
Yeah, and it's
how you-
not strategic. You
Yeah.
know, there's no strategy. You might as well say, we don't have the money for all 70 employees. We got to let 2 go. And here's the 2 that should be gone, as opposed to by chance, somebody decides to leave you. And it's
I think there's a combination of things. That makes sense. So I'm going to do Trevor and then John.
No, I was just gonna suggest as part of this conversation that we bring in finance and management. As sort of explain the process.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know
Did
if
you
I
get that
hear
on finance and management to explain the process of vacancy savings? Great minds think alike.
Process and philosophy.
Yeah. There you go. Yes, Tim.
Well, I've been talking with James about there are big fluctuations in terms of the personnel increases. The percentage increases across departments. I was really struck by the Attorney General's. That was, I think, it was maybe 13% or something, and some other departments are being held to like 1%. And so it may be useful to kind of cross-reference that piece as well with, again, I don't know if that.
Well, I think vacancy savings has been a topic for discussion for a long time. We've, seen that. And personally, I'm not a fan of like across the board 10% cut, or it needs to be strategic. And I don't know if it's strategic or not. I mean, I just, that would be one of the questions that we probably want to ask. So Lynn and then Mike.
Yeah, one of the things when you talk about something like the Attorney General or the Treasurer or any of those independently elected officers, they may get a 3% request from the governor, but I'm not sure the governor really controls, or anybody really controls that situation except them. Because the treasurer, they separated some of the stuff. They took DPIC and took some of the investment stuff out, and they then hired a person to help over there. And then he came in and wanted 2 positions, and he wanted 4 positions, and then I think we gave him 6 or so. I mean, it was like, why would he need more of that when he had just separated up this other group to handle the investments? I mean, it's a good question, because how do they determine what they need, and how do we determine how it fits into the gut?
Well, they still get the same instructions. And then the governor, so if they had total control over their budgets, they wouldn't be coming to us with extra asks. So the Secretary of State, who, Help America Vote Act, and the federal funds are going, they asked for more money, and the governor did not put the money in their budget, and so they have some
independence and some not so independent.
Yeah, I think.
But that would be helpful to clarify.
Yeah, yes, okay. Mike?
Reason I asked the secretary more about vacancies. I wonder if the work's getting done.
Uh-huh.
In our town, we've been pushing for 3 years to address a growing auto graveyard, where the cars are literally piling up. 3 years now. It's nothing.
Have you talked to
Oh, we have been pushing, and I keep, then somebody left, and now it's moving over. It's been a.
Trevor has something to say to that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Act, Flood Safety Act, passed years ago. Agency came to us and said, us being the legislature, saying we need 17 bodies to do this work. The final analysis, by the time we got done with it, the Senate got done with it, they got 11 positions. They got 15 positions and let them fund it. That's the work that we did. We didn't give them the resources.
Well, then let's look at that then.
Is it on private property?
Yeah.
And is it just one person doing it?
It's a family affair.
No, and we have
Literally, cars are
Yes.
backing up alongside the road. There's probably at least 100 vehicles there now.
Are they near the waterway?
No, well, everything's near groundwater and they're at the top of the hill of this road.
Yeah.
Everything.
Right, I mean, we have some under-resourced areas without question, and ANR is one I've heard from other
Yep.
legislators that they're, they have so much work to do,
Well, they do.
and,
I get
They-
it. Let's give them the resources, because this is.
okay, well, when you find the money, you let me know.
Yeah. Well, let's,
Well, if they.
This is
they
the
can
ongoing
save it. I mean, I think
Right.
that it's like, when the agency of administration says, we have 5 people or 6 positions that are vacancy savings, my natural impulse is to say, treat it like it's a pool. And
Yeah.
say, well, I want to use those positions over here,
Right.
especially if they're at this rate and I can put them over here. And I know that's not the way it really works.
Right,
But the essence of saying they don't want us to take away the positions because then they can't claim vacancy savings.
Yeah.
And it's
okay,
particularly deceptive bean counting from someone who's not an accountant.
Yeah.
To think that,
Mm.
to say that you've done the budget and yet we're still under capacity and we can't do our work and we can't do all
Yeah.
these, we can't respond to this stuff, and yet there's positions that are hanging out there. Call it what it is.
right. Well, some vacancy savings can be expected because when you have turnover, there's a time gap.
Yeah.
And so your payroll will go down for that period of time. And they may come in at a lower salary, which is different from, we're not going to fill this position and they were saving $125,000.
And it's also a function of whether we can find people to go into those jobs.
Oh, it's some of the stuff.
That kind of expertise that you may need at that.
Right, and it may take longer.
Because nobody can find people to be employed enough in the state of Vermont at the moment. And the state government.
Yeah,
there's other issues like with the fingerprinting and background checks.
Yeah.
Where it's now
Yeah.
a 6-month wait pending.
It's ridiculous.
I was talking to Sarah, Secretary of State, she said New Hampshire just went through this process and they cut a 6-month wait now down to 3 days.
really? Wow,
Which is what it felt like it was here, 10 or 12 years ago.
Yeah.
When I was like being a substitute
Yep.
teacher.
right,
And every year I had to submit to I had to come down here to Montpelier and get fingerprints done, and it wasn't a problem.
right,
There was an understanding perhaps that even if it took 2 weeks, that I could start working because there was a
Right.
promise that it was coming. But
Getting conditional.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that was, while that was dealing with children, it wasn't dealing with super young
Or
children.
nurses are going through the same thing.
yeah, well, a lot of people, but we now have people going through other organizations, which is why that fund is unfunded, is underfunded because of the $1 million.
That seems to be a priority. It's
Yeah.
really affecting workforce.
Yeah, yeah. Dave, did you have more you wanted to add?
No, just listening intently.
Okay,
I
Yeah,
changed
good.
the subject from
Yeah.
stuff that we've heard, so I was thinking the versions list, and that's another thing I'll talk to you offline
Okay.
about how to really look at it.
Yeah.
Cause I understood the instructions on it or the way to read it. But it seemed a little bit out of date because it included the Land Access Opportunity Board, the $1 million reversion that we then repurposed.
that's right.
Correctly to them, so it was still on this list.
That's because this list is as of July 1st, 2025.
Okay.
So that was why I suggested you ask the questions, is the money still here? How do you plan to use it? When do you plan to use it?
Right, and I'll do that with ACC,
Yeah.
with the more current, or whatever this list is.
Right,
Like, the thing that stood out to me on this list, the other thing that stood out to me on this list is, it goes back to the conversation we had with the Department of Labor, where they were talking about reverting a couple of $1 million in labor force training. No. Yeah, and so when I mentioned this to Mike Marcotte, he didn't really have a verbal response. It was just like, put his head down and just shook his
Yeah.
head about, because the notion of saying, we work really hard between, I mean, most of the heavy lifting was commerce, but being on the labor committee, it was really important for us to support these efforts to bring this money. And in this reversion report, there's $189,000 for new American labor force reversion. And, without understanding, like, yes, there's going to be a drop in the usage of the new American labor force training because the federal government is making it really hard for new Americans to come to Vermont or to the United States. I mean, a lot of this was tied into the expected surge in Afghanis moving to Vermont, which is every 10 years we get a population in, right? Years ago it was Ashkedian Turks, before that it's Bosnians. So if things change, when things change and people are allowed back into the country and they want to come here, do we have to now, does whoever's going to be taking over the Commerce Committee have to fight for this money again? Because at least this money, if not the line item, is gone. As opposed to saying, no, we need to hold on to this because someday there will be new Americans that we want, at a time when, I mean, it's this battle, of course, right? We all know that influx of immigrants will be beneficial to our economy.
Yeah.
And yet here we are, and this isn't the only one. They talked about 900,000. They talked about 900,000 in another. There was a whole list that they were cutting back from labor force training, and I'm like, so what
Are we being
saying?
short-sighted?
Was it? Again, my experience with this administration at times is that program, and it's not just this administration. I'm sure it's any executive branch. To be fair, but this administration for the last 10 years has chosen not to execute things that we have put into statute. And then years later comes back out. And again, I'm not blaming them only. I know it happens elsewhere, but the last 10 years have been this administration. Happened with the Department of Education after Act 46. We put a lot of money into hiring enough staff so that Act 46 could be implemented in a way, especially that small towns could handle. Which is the same argument we're having with Act 73. So we didn't do it. There's vacancies in the area, we used to say. And the execution of what our intent wasn't being followed. And so I'm curious to know if we have labor back in, they're not going to admit to saying, no, we chose to do this. But their execution of what we've asked them to do, especially with money that predates very difficult to hire people for 9 months or, whatever it is, or there weren't enough applications for job training stuff. That has to do with people being able to reach out and, giving these communities more than, we pass laws that no one seems to hear about, even though they have lobbyists in this building. And their job is to get, anyway, it's frustrating to read yet another thing that I know that we work hard in policy committees. I know this committee worked hard to make sure the money was available. And we all walked out of here going, we're doing our best. And then here we 3 or 4 years later.
Right. So Mike, you have
I just want to mention that the Commerce took testimony specifically on this yesterday from DOL. So they have a little bit more insight at this point. They might share a little bit more with us. And again, not to say, I think these are reasonable questions for each diversions.
So, well, and some of it is some of it's reverted, and some of it's carried forward that's years and years old. So we can ask Adam to talk about the bigger picture, and then you all also have your own portfolios, and you can go talk and have some of those deeper conversations. So we're not going to have everybody in to talk about these things, but we have, and be sure, did I explain to you about how you read how old the carry forward is, right? Those 2 digits, so there's 4 digits at the end, and it's the first 2, so you'll see there's a 23 or a 24 or a 21 or a 25. Maybe there's an 18. I don't know. But some of these, if it's last year, then they should probably say, well, it's a timing thing, and we have to send it. But if we're going back 2 or 3 or 4 years, we should be finding out a bit more. And I know that some of the FEMA stuff was 23, and there was some COVID stuff, and there's stuff they're doing with the flooding and they're still
Yeah,
negotiating. with
all of
FEMA.
that is still in process.
Right, so just, but we can confirm that, so just so we know, but some of these, I think we're starting to hear, well, it's been there for 5 years and actually we're not gonna use it, so let's take that back and that's money available that we can reuse.
And just one more frustration with all of this conversation with particular programs that I can only identify a small percentage of.
Yeah.
And knowing that we're gonna go into the next chunk of our work with legislators, advocates, we have a pile of requests.
Yes.
That, you know, we're gonna be saying to people, no, or here's just a 22% of what you asked for, all this other stuff. And then we have the administration requests for ADFs, which they testified in the committee upstairs. That they went from being $1 million in the black to $20 million in the red, and they don't know why.
Yeah.
And now we're expected to just give a blank check to them because we have to have Microsoft licenses, because we have to have these programs. Any more than we have to feed people. And so.
Well, we're gonna.
I know, but those are the kinds of, that's the kind of difference in how I'm hearing numbers. And I'm just expressing my own personal agita over the fact that there's numbers that we have to do.
Yeah.
Not taking the accountability of why didn't you put this money out? Why wasn't there capacity to get this money out? Or you can't explain it, you know, then to a level that says anything more to me than why should I trust that the money that we're gonna be throwing at ADS is gonna be used properly, because the money we've thrown at ADS with this vague promise that we're in the black hasn't happened.
Yeah.
And that's not just because Microsoft is hard to deal with. That's not just because computers are hard. You know, that's competency. And how do we judge that? And then give them the money and then turn around to people who are sleeping on the streets. Say, sorry, can't help you. You know, I have a hard time with that. And you know, that's gonna be my struggle moving forward. I'm just laying it out here. So when you see my resting bitch face out in public, it's gonna be because I'm very unhappy
Yes.
at how we may be making decisions, or
That's
how we
right.
have to make decisions.
That's right. And I think, you know, we all knew we were coming into a hard year. And I think we're starting to see the challenges we're gonna face as we make the decisions, and we're gonna make some really hard decisions, and we are not gonna make everybody happy. There's no question.
Yeah.
But we are gonna continue to try to understand it the best we can and try to make the best decisions we can. And my goal at the end of the day is still to minimize harm where, you know, as much as possible to Vermonters, because that's what we're here for. You know, in many different ways. And that comes in many different forms, right? So, yeah, it's gonna be hard, folks. I think we're really seeing it now. So keep thinking about it. Yeah, we're anticipating. Okay, well, so we're gonna keep digging, and where we can find money to do things and where we can understand things better. We'll continue to try to understand things. So if you have other ideas of who you want to have come in, if we need to, we can do that. The committees are going to be doing stuff too, and then you all have your, you know, there's sometimes those side conversations can be the most effective as well.